money is not our source. Source is our source.
Yeah.
And on both ends of this spectrum, when you're really connected to source energy from your meditation practice, your spiritual practice, from whatever thing you're doing, right? And like, it could be from eating mangoes in a present way. I mean, it doesn't have to be something codified by someone else. But when you're connected to source, the money piece becomes clear because you're not chasing a hungry ghost. You're not in the delusion that a certain amount of money is going to bring you a feeling that you do not already have access to right in this moment. Physiologically, we have access to every single feeling we want to feel. Yet we have this illusion, which is programmed by toxic capitalism and the entire marketing and advertising world, that products and a certain amount of money and other things are going to make us feel a certain way that we don't have access to right now. Mm-hmm. It's just a lie. Mm-hmm. We can feel any way we want to feel. And the great irony of it is that when we give ourselves permission to feel that way now and cultivate practices in our life that don't have to cost a dime, that we can feel that way right now, and then we become way more magnetic to money because we're operating from wholeness as opposed to from a feeling that there's something out there that I will get to have that I can't have right now. But we are whole and complete and lacking in nothing. And then when we know that, we kind of know what to charge. And we kind of like it, or we can live like I've expanded and contracted my lifestyle in a variety of ways also. I do also like to play with those numbers and just see like, okay, well, what does it feel like? We sold a big house in Maine and then we moved to like a small place. And then we, like just playing with the edges of like, what does this feel like? What does that feel like? Just does it matter? Does it enhance the quality of my life? Yes or no? Can I still feel abundant? Then the answer is yes. But when I do that, when we can do that, we can really come to the realization and the true knowing that like you said, if we can't find a way to feel connected now, no amount of money is ever going to make us feel that way. And in fact, just trying to pile more and more on it might make it worse. I don't know.
Totally. No, I mean, I think you touch on some very important points, right? And I had a moment of that recently. And, we're both talking about ranges that are privileged, right?
100%.
True poverty is fucking exhausting and devastating to the nervous system.
Yes.
Right?
Everything we're talking about is like, this only applies once your food, shelter, and safety are handled and you've got a little bit of breathing room.
Totally. Which everyone deserves, right?
And there are enough resources on the planet for everyone to have way more than that.
Totally.
So any feeling of like, if I charge more, that automatically means someone is going to have less. Money is pretend. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And that is a huge thing that I encounter as well, is like, I have shame charging more because there are people who don't have food. And I'm like, tell me how charging less gives those people more food, right? Like if you want to solve systemic issues in our economic system, that is something entirely different.
Yeah.
But undercharging and exhausting yourself
is not the solution to
not solving anyone's problem.
No, it's totally not. And it's just making your life harder, which makes you definitely less equipped to contribute to solving those systemic issues.
Totally. And when you hold the vibration of everyone is going to be joyfully thrilled to exchange money with me for my services, they are.
I know.
It's so great. It's actually so great. And it is holding that truth that like, I'm not dependent on money or a certain amount beyond my basic necessities for happiness, right? Like even for a little while when I was self-funding my second company and I was like, okay, time to like, whatever that is, tighten the belt a little bit,
Yeah.
And I've been so proud of myself, as my mom was the first in her generation to go to college. Both my mom and my stepdad grew up in horrible poverty, my mom with food insecurity. So for me to build a successful business empire, I was so proud of myself. I am still so proud of myself, right? So when I was able to buy my first business class ticket, I was like, yeah! look at me. And then when I was like, all right, let's be a little bit more responsible as we're making this big financial leap. So I flew economy and I was like, you're going to sit middle class in economy and you are going to own that your happiness is not dependent on your lifestyle in this way. And yes, flying economy is still a huge privilege, right? Being on a plane is still a huge privilege. And being able to downgrade and upgrade and feel the truth that like my worth isn't dependent on that, you know? And like, I even practice because like, you know, when you're sitting at the front of the plane and like people are walking by and they know you, you're like, yeah, I'm baller. What I used to feel like a few years ago, and I was like in middle class economy and like row 23 and I was like, I'm baller. Yeah. And like owning that and holding that.
Because that's who you are, regardless of where on an airplane you're sitting.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say about money before we switch to burnout and overwhelm is just how, you know, when I'm doing sales training and things like that, the number one block that I see to people making more money is a discomfort talking about it, right? I'm uncomfortable charging a certain amount for my coaching packages. I'm uncomfortable having a conversation about a raise, right? And I have noticed that when people are, I want to say forced, right? Because in our trainings, we have them talk about money openly and talk about what they're charging openly. Their shame and fear around money goes away and they're able to have those conversations. And again, it's very similar to sex. If you're too terrified to ever say what you really want or have a basic conversation about sex or boundaries with your partner, your chances of getting sexually fulfilled are very low, right? So learning to talk about money, becoming fluent in money, reading your book, right? I read Tony Robbins' book. I read Warren Buffett's book.
I read good ones.
Yeah. The basic, whatever that like really key one is about investing that my Burning Man brain may or may not dig out of.
I may not have read it, honestly.
It's the one that's basically like, just put all your money in index funds, you know, from like the 1970s, 1980s.
Yeah.
And they have a point. And those books made me feel enough financial fluency that I was able to meet conversations about money, to talk to financial advisors, to get myself an investment index fund at Vanguard or whatever, just to do the basic things. And even just that, right? Because I grew up with no conversations about money. Nobody looked like me who made a lot of money when I was growing up. People with pussies didn't have money, right? They either had to make money through marriage or inheritance or, you know, get it through their sexuality. You didn't make money by being a fucking boss genius when I was growing up if you had a pussy. And so I just want to say how brave and courageous all of us were, including those of us who were privileged, even if it was easier for us to make that leap, to do something that we never saw. And I also got the conditioning, you know, and it's still around there that like business women are all like so unhappy and so in their masculine or whatever. I'm like, I'm so fucking happy. Like, I love the way I get to spend money. I'm so joyful in having a team and having a business, not all the time. We'll talk about the struggles in just a second, but to know that and that's possible, I think is so good for us. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing I could leave people with in this conversation, it's read those financial books, become financially literate, and learn to have conversations about money. So like, I loved this challenge from some of my friends who had the Health Coaching Institute, where they were like, even if you were never going to charge $50,000 for a coaching package, step into the reality of who you would need to be to know that that's possible. And so I did. Right. And I used to judge this woman who was like always like on yachts with like glasses of champagne and like fucking Louis Vuittons or whatever, for Louis Vuittons for, you know, her marketing materials. And I like just the amount of like disgust that I felt in my body. I was like, we're going to heal this. I was like, we might not ever want to stand on a yacht holding champagne with our Louis Vuittons. Like, I think I'm saying that right. I'm like getting Louis Vuitton.
It's a bit of a cross, but same.
Those $800 shoes with red bottoms. Right. And like Hermes. I'm learning like all the, like, I didn't know how to say any of this
Hermes.
before. Yeah. I totally said Hermes the other day. I was like, the wing-footed god of communication from Greece,
and $1,000 million belts,
scarf or whatever, you know? Yeah. Like you have to ask, then you can't afford it or whatever that whole vibe is. Like, anyways, I've been learning to say all this, but I was like, let me put myself in that vision to eviscerate the somatic disgust.
Yes.
because actually I like yachts. I just don't necessarily, I like other $800 shoes, but not those ones. And I don't drink alcohol. But the point is, I put myself there to be like, you could be there without resistance. And then you've opened the aperture
Yes.
of standing wherever is true.
In your version of expansion.
Yeah.